Here's something that will destroy everything you think you know about attraction. The most powerful foreplay has nothing to do with your body. It doesn't happen in the bedroom, and it starts the moment you wake up. Most men are walking around completely backwards. They think foreplay is something you do to a woman. They think it's a technique, a series of moves, a performance you put on when you want something from her. They've turned intimacy into a transaction, and then they wonder why their relationships feel hollow. But here's the truth that ancient Stoics understood about desire, connection, and human nature. Real foreplay is who you are, not what you do. The Stoics had a concept called premeditatio malorum, the practice of imagining loss. But they also understood something deeper about presence, about the magnetic pull of a man who has mastered himself. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his Meditations, "Very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself, in your way of thinking." That way of thinking, that's self-possession. That's the foreplay that works on every woman, every time. Let me explain why everything you've been taught is wrong. You've been conditioned to believe that attraction is about what you give, what you provide, what you perform. Society tells you to be the entertainer, the provider, the one who proves his worth through action. But this creates something psychologists call validation dependency. You become addicted to external approval, constantly performing for acceptance. A woman can sense this desperation from miles away. She can feel when you need something from her, when your confidence is borrowed rather than owned. And nothing kills attraction faster than a man who doesn't know his own value. Here's what the Stoics knew. True power comes from needing nothing from anyone. When you stop seeking validation, you become validating. When you stop trying to impress, you become impressive. When you stop performing, you start attracting. This is the paradox of masculine energy that most men never understand. Think about the last time you were around a truly confident man, not the guy who talks the loudest or flexes the hardest, but the one who carries himself with quiet certainty. There's something magnetic about him, isn't there? Something that draws people in without him trying. That magnetism isn't accidental. It's the result of internal work of a man who has faced his fears, accepted his flaws, and built his identity on something unshakable. It's the result of emotional self-sufficiency. And women, they feel this energy like gravity. But here's where it gets deeper. Real foreplay, the kind that creates lasting attraction, happens in your mind long before it happens anywhere else. It's the way you think about yourself, about her, about the relationship between you. Most men approach women with a poverty mindset. They're focused on what they lack, what they need, what they're trying to get. Their thoughts are scattered. Their energy is desperate. Their presence is needy. But a Stoic approaches relationships from abundance, not material abundance. That's just another form of performance. Emotional abundance, mental abundance. The abundance that comes from knowing who you are and needing nothing from anyone to validate that knowledge. This shows up in everything you do. The way you listen without trying to fix, the way you speak without trying to impress, the way you touch without trying to take, the way you're present without trying to prove. When Marcus Aurelius wrote about the discipline of perception, he was talking about seeing things as they really are, not as we wish them to be or fear them to be. Apply this to relationships, and everything changes. You stop seeing women as prizes to be won or problems to be solved. You stop seeing intimacy as something you perform or purchase. You start seeing connection as something that happens naturally between two whole people who don't need anything from each other, but choose to share their completeness. This is the foundation of real attraction. Not the desperate energy of a man trying to prove himself, but the calm confidence of a man who already knows his worth. Let me tell you about David. Successful guy, good-looking, had all the external markers of attractiveness, but his relationships kept failing. Women would lose interest after a few months, and he couldn't understand why. The problem wasn't his technique. It wasn't his looks or his money or his conversation skills. The problem was his energy. Every interaction was a performance. Every conversation was an audition. Every moment of intimacy was him trying to prove he was worthy of her attention. Women could feel him reaching for their validation. They could sense his neediness beneath the confident exterior. And neediness, no matter how well dressed, is repulsive to the feminine. David learned what you're learning right now. The most attractive thing about a man is his ability to be complete without you. Not because he doesn't want you, but because he doesn't need you to be okay. This isn't about playing games or being distant. This is about genuine self-sufficiency, emotional maturity, and the kind of presence that can only come from inner work. Here's how this translates to real life, to real relationships, to real intimacy. When you've done the work on yourself, when you've faced your insecurities, accepted your flaws, and built your confidence on something solid, your entire energy changes. You stop trying to take from interactions and start bringing value to them. You listen differently. Instead of listening for what you can say to impress her, you listen to understand her. Instead of waiting for your turn to perform, you're genuinely curious about her thoughts, her dreams, her fears. You speak differently. Your words carry weight because they're coming from conviction, not insecurity. You're not trying to say what she wants to hear, you're sharing what's actually true for you. You touch differently. Your hands don't grab or demand or try to prove anything. They're confident, present, connected to someone who knows his own value and isn't trying to steal hers. This is what real foreplay looks like. It's the accumulation of moments where she feels your strength, your presence, your unshakable sense of self. It's her gradually realizing that you're not like other men. You don't need her to complete you, which paradoxically makes her want to be close to you. The ancient Stoics called this ataraxia, a state of serene calmness and composure, especially in the face of difficulty. When you embody this energy, you become a refuge in a world of chaos, a source of strength in a sea of insecurity. And women are biologically wired to be attracted to strength, not the performative strength of a man trying to prove himself, but the quiet strength of a man who has nothing to prove. But here's what most men miss. This isn't about being cold or distant or withholding. This isn't about playing hard to get or manipulating anyone. This is about being so grounded in yourself that your presence becomes a gift rather than a demand. When you're not seeking anything from her, she can feel safe to be herself around you. When you're not trying to fix her or change her or get something from her, she can relax into her feminine energy. When you're complete without her, she can choose to add to your completeness rather than feeling pressured to create it. This is the secret that pickup artists and dating coaches completely miss. They're teaching men to perform better, but performance is the problem. They're teaching men to be more attractive, but neediness is inherently unattractive no matter how well you package it. Real attraction happens when you stop trying to be attractive and start being complete. Think about it. When was the last time you were genuinely attracted to someone who clearly needed your approval? Someone who was obviously trying too hard to impress you? Someone whose confidence seemed borrowed rather than owned? Never, right? Because desperation is repulsive, regardless of gender. But when you meet someone who is genuinely content with themselves, who doesn't need anything from you but enjoys your company, who brings their own energy to the interaction rather than trying to steal yours, that's magnetic. This is what women feel when they're around a man who has mastered himself. They feel the absence of neediness, the presence of strength, the calm confidence of someone who knows who he is and doesn't need external validation to maintain that knowledge. And in a world full of men who are performing, pretending, and pleading for approval, this energy stands out like a lighthouse in a storm. The Stoics understood that external circumstances, including other people, are ultimately outside our control. What we can control is our response to those circumstances, our internal state, our character. When you apply this wisdom to relationships, you stop trying to control outcomes and start focusing on being the kind of man who naturally attracts what he desires. You stop worrying about whether she likes you and start becoming someone worth liking. You stop performing attraction and start embodying it. This shift changes everything. Your conversations become more authentic because you're not trying to say the right thing. You're simply sharing your truth. Your touch becomes more confident because you're not seeking permission or validation. You're expressing genuine desire from a place of abundance rather than scarcity. Your presence becomes more magnetic because you're not there to take anything from her. You're there to share your completeness and enjoy hers. Here's the practical reality. When you've done the internal work, when you've built your confidence on something unshakable, when you've learned to be complete without anyone else's validation, your entire approach to intimacy transforms. You're not rushing toward the bedroom because you don't need sex to feel valuable. You're not performing because you don't need her approval to feel confident. You're not trying to impress because you already know your worth. Instead, you're present. You're enjoying the moment. You're connecting human to human rather than trying to get something from her. And this presence, this genuine connection, this energy of a man who knows himself, this is the foreplay that works on every woman. Not because it's a technique or a strategy, but because it taps into something fundamental about human nature and attraction. Women are drawn to men who don't need them but choose them, who are complete without them, but enjoy sharing that completeness, who bring strength to the relationship rather than seeking it from the relationship. This isn't about being perfect. The Stoics weren't seeking perfection. They were seeking virtue, character, and self-mastery. They understood that we're all flawed, all struggling, all learning. But they also understood that we can choose our response to those struggles. When you embrace this philosophy, when you do the work on yourself, when you build your identity on something solid, you become the kind of man that women naturally want to be close to. Not because you're performing attraction, but because you're embodying it. The irony is perfect. The less you need from her, the more she wants to give. The less you're trying to impress her, the more impressed she becomes. The less you're performing, the more attractive you are. This is the foreplay that works on every woman, because it's not really foreplay at all, it's character. It's the energy of a man who has mastered himself, who knows his worth, who brings value to every interaction without needing anything in return. And in a world of men who are desperate, needy, and performing for approval, this energy is irresistible. So, here's your choice. You can keep trying to perform your way into attraction, keep seeking validation from others, keep building your confidence on external circumstances that are ultimately outside your control. Or you can do the work. You can face your fears, accept your flaws, and build your identity on something unshakable. You can learn to be complete without anyone else's approval. You can master yourself. The path of self-mastery isn't easy, but it's the only path that leads to genuine confidence, authentic relationships, and the kind of presence that naturally attracts what you desire. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy." In the context of modern relationships, the best response to a world of needy, performing men is to be different, to be complete, to be unshakable. When you embody this energy, you don't just become more attractive to women, you become more attractive to everyone. You become the kind of person others want to be around, not because of what you can give them, but because of who you are. This is the ultimate foreplay. Being a man who has mastered himself, everything else is just technique. If this shifted something in how you think about attraction and relationships, comment below. I control my focus. Let me know this resonated, and more importantly, let yourself know that you're ready to do the work that will transform not just your relationships, but your entire life. The path of self-mastery starts now. The choice, as always, is yours.